I'm Britton Clennett and welcome to China Insight, where we discuss the latest issues affecting this rapidly changing country. Well, fashion is a relatively new concept in China. In just several decades, the industry has come a long way. But how much catching up does it still have to do? And will ever Chinese fashion be as influential as fashion houses like Paris and London? What's more, can it fend off stereotypes of Oriental mystique or resist pandering to Western taste? Who would be better for insight into the Chinese fashion world than Angelica Zheng, Editor-in-Chief of Vogue China? Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I want to start by asking you, what is Chinese fashion? How would you describe it?
Oh, it's a huge topic, but what I would describe today, Chinese fashion, is that it's becoming a lot more interesting. You know, the consumers have become more open-minded about more styles. And, even 10 years ago, Chinese fashion industry, you would consider as sort of more like a consumer market, consumption market. And now we have some local creations, and we started to have a voice in terms of creativity, in terms of design, and in terms of styles, and also in terms of quality. Mm-hmm. So it is, compared to many years ago, we've advanced a lot from zero to somewhere now, yes.
Right, okay, well, I want to talk more about that evolution after this clip. China Insight travelled to China's fashion capital, Shanghai, to check out the scene and speak to designers making their mark in the industry. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
The Met Ball Gala, considered one of the most important fashion events of the year in New York City, is a stage for celebrities to flaunt their style and for designers to showcase their creations. Last year the theme was China Through the Looking Glass, a nod to the increased importance of this country in the global fashion arena. The interpretation of Chinese elements by international stars ranged from the elegant to the outright surreal. But did they hit the mark?
Chinese fashion, two words that conjure up a multitude of images in the Western mind. Images of phoenixes and dragons, grand designs of an imperial past. But what defines modern Chinese fashion? To find the answer to that question, the place to be is arguably Shanghai. At the forefront of the industry in China, maybe even in Asia, it is here that we witness a new era in Chinese fashion.
之前说中国风格，人可能就会想到龙和凤凰。你觉得这是中国风格吗？
一般可能穿的比较少，可能舞台上面啊，或者是电视剧啊、电影啊，可能会运用的比较多。
那老百姓现在穿的是什么？
中国风还是相对比较少。
就是有民族性的东西。然后我觉得，如果你自己很会穿衣服，可以把一些民族的东西穿在日常的话，是一个很酷的事情。
Since the opening and reform, China has become known as the world's factory, with the era marked by the brand Made in China. Subsequently, the rise of the middle class has transformed the country into the world's largest market for luxury fashion, almost exclusively dominated by imported brands in the past. But now, designed in China is on the rise, as Chinese designers push the domestic fashion sector to a whole new level.
在以前，我们之所以不关注中国设计师，是因为我们选择很少，能够做得很成功、很出色的中国设计师没有几位。而现在，越来越多的中国设计师获得了非常好的这种良好的时装教育，他们有非常高明的时装剪裁设计手段，他们的作品也越来越跟国际化接轨。
If you want to discover the latest fashion trends in China, the place to go is Huaihai Zhonglu, Shanghai's answer to Fifth Avenue. On the street corner, the most prestigious location is occupied by the Hermes flagship store, along with Shangxia, a locally grown high-end lifestyle brand.
We want to take the heritage from the past and transform this heritage into, contemporary design, the trendy style, the new lifestyle, correspond to the young. I think this kind of dream, the revival of traditional crafts, the revival of the Chinese design, creativity and aesthetic.
Jiang Qiong'er is today an internationally renowned designer. Studying in Europe has brought a cosmopolitan and cross-cultural approach to her creations, while at the same time she embraces her heritage. The Shangxia brand, established 5 years ago, was the brainchild of Miss Jiang and Hermès CEO Pierre-Alexis Dumas. Its aim? To create a 21st century lifestyle grounded in the finest Chinese design traditions.
So this is the, the scarf, and I talk about that, the bamboo weaving, you see. We have a team of permanent looking for artisans, crafts, know-how, atelier. So with the R&D, the research and development department, the team, today we are still looking for these atelier and crafts, when we discovered the bamboo weaving crafts, they are weaving the animals like elephant or insect. But you don't use a bamboo woven elephant in your daily life. So what we try to transform, for example, we use it into the tea service. It's separate, protect your hand from very hot water. So this is a good example, is about functionality.
In their collection, they try to incorporate ancient or unique techniques in every item. A hybrid of historical Chinese elements and modern flair, there is something about the look and feel of their collection that is still unmistakably Chinese.
So here we have a very interesting example of a piece of clothing. As you can see, there are no seams or hems. That is because it is made by rubbing felt and cashmere together. This is based on an ancient technique used by Mongolian herdsmen to make yurts. What's more, this is actually a Han style. So what we have here is a mixing of the different cultural influences present within China, plus the preservation and even reinvention of traditional Chinese crafts.
The brand strives for high quality in its products. Though it naturally comes at a high price, such quality and labor-intensive craft work is these days an exception in an industry that values speed and profit, where it is rare to find an approach that is not just looking for a quick fix.
So when you take time to do everything well, and with the vision of we are not only here to earn today's money. So in this kind of mentality and vision, everything is different.
Innovation is now the buzzword, thanks in part to a push from the government. Meanwhile, more Chinese fashionistas, familiar with Western style, have been thirsting for a more individual look. This has set the stage for young designers such as Ren Qian, an up-and-coming talent from Chengdu. After studying fashion in France, she returned to China 4 years ago, launching her own brand from a loft studio in Shanghai.
所以我可能会对中国人的一些性格、爱好、身材会更了解一点。我们品牌理念其实很简单，就是一个是实穿性，一个就是性价比。因为我们其实最在乎的更多是产品，除了设计好之外，然后我们更在乎的可能就是面料跟工艺。 然后和在相对合理的价格上，我们一定要做到大品牌的质量和大品牌的面料还有设计。
It's tough for grassroots brands such as Renren to establish themselves, with funding being a particular problem. In the initial phase of the business, much of Ren Xian's time was taken up in meetings with buyers and customers, explaining her concept of fashion and promoting her brand. The fast-developing world of e-commerce has been both a blessing and a curse for her venture.
网上还蛮多的，然后就一模一样的印花，然后他们的价格便宜很多，他们的供应链各方面都比我们更快、更强大，所以他们仿起来的时候可能会更快。虽然不一定质量有我们的这么好，就还是会回到以前，就是对创新的设计没有这么在乎。 大家可能更在乎的是赚不赚钱，好不好卖。其实对我们像我们这一代或者更年轻的人，他们的热情就会有一定冲击。
Even so, after 4 years of careful cultivation, she has built a solid customer base, with several celebrities counting themselves among her fans. And she now owns nearly 20 retail stores nationwide. A Chinese presence is also increasingly to be found on the world's catwalks. The Fashion Fringe Award, the grand finale of London Fashion Week for over a decade, supports young designers in launching their labels. In 2012, Wang Haizhen became the first Chinese designer to receive the coveted award, handed to him by Christopher Bailey, CEO of Burberry.
It was thrilled to be selected, to the final, and eventually I won the award. So it was such a pleasure and a privilege to have such an honor. So it was great.
Having started out in interior design, Wang admits to accidentally applying for a clothing design degree and falling in love with it. He was later admitted to Central St. Martin's in London, one of the top design schools worldwide, where he undertook advanced studies in fashion design. His style is generally described as playing with Chinese elements in his choice of cuts and fabric to develop a trendy style.
I've been always focusing on the silhouette and the body construction and the functional at the same time. So I think at first most of customers feel the impression of the fit and the confidence when you wear something that brings out the atmosphere of a mood. Yeah.
That's lovely.
With his Fashion Fringe victory in 2012, the young Chinese designer managed to impress even Christopher Bailey, the head of one of the world's most recognizable brands. This is how he describes Haizhen's work. With Haizhen, he has a talent that hopefully the industry will relate to. It's effortless and in his blood. When you first see his work, it appears to be very graphic and bold, but it's constructed in a very sensual way. Following his success at the 2012 awards, Wang opened his own studio in London. He has since been an ever-present at the London and Paris Fashion Weeks.
During the past of years, I've been mentored by different industry people, so I've seen so many things. So I'm so really different from where I was when I started. After years and years running your own brand, then you realize there's supposed to be so much things to do. I think for some young brand or young designer, they have to have a strong mentality and a thought, and really think what they really want to do.
不可否认，他们有最先进的时装的这种剪裁设计的技术，他们有这么多年沉淀的工艺。 他们有非常严格、成熟的体系去运作时装，运作每一场秀的发布，运作每个设计师之间的相互交流。而我讲过，中国时装其实起步很晚，我们花很短时间在努力去追赶别人的脚步。
At those days, Italian does all these sort of things. They still do. They are one of the greatest manufacturer supplier in the world. I think China follows what Italian and Japanese stamps. It's like a circle. Everyone has their own role, and when you reach a certain level of manufacturing, then you have the base.
With production costs rising, manufacturing is not as profitable as it used to be. The industry finds itself at a turning point, with the government-led design boom apparently the way ahead. In an effort to rid Chinese design of its copycat reputation, a stage was needed on which the country's designers could debut. And so Shanghai Fashion Week, China Fashion Week in Beijing, and Shenzhen Fashion Week came into being.
我觉得中国时尚的力量正在发芽，也正在成长。可能再往以前倒推，我们在一个不成熟的时候，我们有很多借鉴的元素痕迹会存在。 但这2年，我们有很多出色的这些设计师，在给我们创作出很多很棒的作品。
With the internet, the latest fashion trends are merely a click away. This easy familiarity is making it harder for international brands to impress Chinese consumers. With more information and a better understanding of fashion principles, these consumers' demands are changing.
Has there been a shift in the appreciation of fashion or the opinions on fashion among Chinese people?
The better the economic China gets, more and more people, they will ask themselves, why I am an entrepreneur from China? What is my ID? What shall I dress? Where shall I live? What is my lifestyle? So little by little, it's not like mainstream yet, but little by little, we can feel that trends. More and more Chinese people, they have the confidence. They have the confidence to pursue their own style.
According to a recent report by management consultants Bain & Company, the luxury market is shrinking. 2015 was the second consecutive year that the industry has been in decline, falling by 2%. The days of crazy expansion are over, even in China, where foreign brands are reducing their activities. They are leaving a gap that young Chinese designers with a better understanding of the elusive Chinese consumer are only too eager to fill. This is their opportunity to build a new fashion era, characterized by a more refined and personal style.
China is the, world's factory. It's known as the world's factory in some ways.
Yes.
And, as it was brought up in the film, it has that manufacturing base. So, I mean, can it carve out its own fashion world and develop in a really big way, so to compete with, powerhouses like Paris?
Well, yes, certainly. We have some manufacturing base and, we have a long history of creativity too in the past. And what we did fall behind was really in terms of modern fashion in today's concept. So, but we've been playing catching up all these years. And now, you can see there's quite a great quantity and number of Chinese designers very active, both in China and overseas too. So from this, what we've seen in the program. And, if we have developed in that kind of speed in the last 10 years, and you can see that in next 10 years, 20 years, we will keep developing and have a bigger voice on the international fashion scene as well. Are we there yet? No, I don't think we're there yet. But certainly, this generation of Chinese fashion designers have changed the scene a lot.
How far do you think China is from having its own Tom Ford or, Karl Lagerfeld, whatever you're going to go for? How far is it?
If you put things in context, the Western fashion has come, has developed over a period of very long time. If you give us more time, I'm sure we can develop a lot of, more influential labels and designers. But if you look at what we've achieved in the past 10 years,
it's remarkable.
We have all the reason to be very optimistic about it.
I want you to take us back a decade from when you started at Vogue. What were the kind of challenges that you faced, in some ways really convincing the world that there was a worthwhile fashion scene here that just needed to blossom?
Well, there was a lot, to be honest. There wasn't much happening at the time, and there was a lot to do. We looked at everything, and we realized everything was lacking. And then we didn't even have many Chinese models. So we started from Du Juan, created her international career, and then now if you look at the past 10 years, we developed not just Du Juan, Liu Wen, Fei Fei, Xiao Wen today, and a host of young Chinese models. And they are very active, not just in China, but also internationally. Ironically now, that even I have problems booking them.
Wow.
I mean, on the one hand, you think, oh, come on,
But in a maternal kind of way, yeah.
On the other hand, you're happy for the girls.
Yeah.
The reason why we supported so many models, designers, and photographers from China is also because I wanted a stronger, louder, collective voice that represent the creative force out of China.
Right.
So that all these years, in China, we're viewed internationally as a huge consumption market.
Right.
We have a lot of people and eager to consume fashion. But on the other hand, I feel to be truly influential internationally, not just you can reach out to so many consumers in China, but also you can have your own creative voice, both in China and internationally. And only by doing that, you can feel that you get more respect internationally.
And that brings us to, obviously, last year, the last year's Met Ball, the theme was China Through the Looking Glass. And of course, you had that sort of, the Rihanna dress by Guo Pei, which kind of stood out, didn't it? And the response to it was kind of critical. What's your reaction to something like that? Is it really, perpetuating these Oriental stereotypes of over the top? Here we have it here.
Yeah, the famous one.
Or should we just accept it as theatre, which is, in some ways what the Met Ball
I know, a lot has been said about this topic. And I think there are several elements to this, several ways you can approach this. First of all, is the reality of the world today that entertainment and celebrities are sort of are more
fused together,
attract more interest from the general audience than the exhibition itself. This is just an opening gala. Actually, the most important essence is actually the exhibition itself. And on another level, it's also about Rihanna herself. If Rihanna feels that dress really fits her and is really what she wants to be perceived in, and I feel that as successful. And now, a bigger question about the cliches, about how Chinese culture should be perceived. I feel that is a really huge topic. And this is how Guo Pei sees her creation. It's her voice. You look at the picture, you think it's just Rihanna wearing a huge dramatic dress. But if you look closely to this dress, there's so much work in there. That is an accumulation of generations of craftsmanship by Chinese craftspeople. And by simply saying that it's just a showpiece, I think it undermines a lot of this work through the generations of Chinese craftspeople. And I just feel that being a member of the creative world, in general, I want to encourage more people to experiment, to travel, to experience, to learn, and then eventually to develop your own point of view. But while at the same time, and being open-minded enough to see what everybody else is doing it.
I think that's good advice to any inspiring fashion designers out there. Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to continue that conversation just after a very short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to China Insight. I'm talking fashion with Vogue China editor-in-chief Angelica Zheng. How do you perceive modern Chinese fashion? We asked expats in China what they thought. Let's take a look.
Before you came to China, what did you think Chinese fashion was?
I think it was pretty horrible. I didn't think they really have a good sense of fashion. And you can see an outfit and it's all on point, but then they have a really ugly purse or really ugly shoes. Something that's really, really different than what I would ever use in Europe.
It's the more traditional clothing, on the TV series that we have on Netflix in Europe. There are a lot of emperor style and a lot of color.
Que igual vestían más clásico, que eran más clásicos, más tradicionales. Pero lo que me he encontrado es que la gente es muy trendy, que visten muy a la moda, son muy coquetos, además, les gusta mucho ir arreglados y me ha sorprendido.
I think also my understanding of fashion has changed a bit because sometimes I I find myself looking at clothes and finding them attractive, or buying clothes I wouldn't have bought before.
I think now I still see some people whose style I really don't like, but I still see like more things now that I could see myself using also, and like more maybe colors that I wouldn't use in Finland that easily.
I mean, we spoke a little bit about judgment. There's a bit of judgment going on there. Well, but what's interesting is this girl kind of said that she'd also kind of been influenced by living in China. When I think about, you know, fashionable people that I see, they do have this kind of experimental edge, which is kind of nice, you know. So I wonder if you see that happening as well.
I remember 10 years ago when I went overseas as a tourist, right? You see Chinese tourists overseas, you could always spot Chinese tourists, right? From the hair to the shoes to the clothes they were wearing. Today, you go overseas, it's very hard to tell. I mean, they are obviously Chinese looking. But it's very hard to judge from just purely the way they dress. A lot, especially the girls, and a lot of boys too, they look just like young people in New York and Paris and in London in terms of the way they mix fashion. So that gives us all a lot of reason for feeling positive about Chinese fashion.
I find it kind of fascinating, this parallel between Vogue China's journey over the last decade and then the Chinese fashion industry, how that's developed in the last 10 years and how they've kind of influenced each other. Where next?
Well, I think the next is about creating collectively a Chinese designer's voice. I feel that's the ultimate sign of confidence when you can develop your Chinese designers, the styles that can say that it is Chinese contemporary designs. And I feel that this contemporary group of Chinese young designers, they were educated internationally, overseas, so they know how fashion works internationally. So that's a plus. But on the other hand, all these years of catching up with international fashion, this young generation, I feel, can feel confident enough to now look back into our own culture. I mean, we have a lot of difficulties facing our young designers from China now. A lot of designers ask me that question, Angelica, what should we do? Whatever we do, you know, people copy. Then I just say basically, on the one hand, obviously, as a country, legally, you know, the country is trying to look for ways to protect copyright and to encourage more creative, original creativity. But on the other hand, from the designer's point of view, I feel that they need to also feel more confident about themselves. People can replicate a few patterns, but a designer, as a brand, as a creative voice, you need to have a voice. You need to have a point of view. You need to have an overall spirit that says, this is me. It's not just the appearance. It's about everything you want to represent. I like our Chinese, our readers, and we ourselves, professionals, to be more poised and to be more really relaxed about ourselves. If you are always very tense and nervous about how the world see yourself, sometimes maybe that limits how much you can develop and express.
Well, it has been quite the journey for you over the last decade and for the fashion industry, and this has been a nice journey learning about the fashion industry as well. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Angelica.
Thank you.
If you have any comments or questions, please email us at chinainsight@cctv.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Weibo and WeChat. And we'll see you next time for more stories and discussion on China out of China. Goodbye.